sounds fine to me. Okay. Is everybody ready? I'm good to go.
Yep.
Techie, you good to
Tekkie's
go?
in. I'm here.
All right,
Yeah,
good.
baby.
Kenny, you good to go?
Of
Is that a
course.
question or a statement? Is that a question or a statement? Make up your mind. All right. Whoopagoosh! Amazing intro time. Hey, hello everybody. You're listening to the second episode of Strife Talk, the podcast dedicated to the upcoming MOBA Strife by S2 Games. Joining me this week will be panel members TekkieSO and StrawhatKenny, and we will discuss various topics. If you've never been on a live stream of us before, basically here is how it works. We've come up with some topics, but overall we like to keep the format as open as possible. So that's why we do it live on Twitch. If you have something that you want an explanation on, if you have something that's on your mind, or if you disagree with us, just type it on the chat and we will have some viewer engagement and we will communicate with you. And if it's good enough, we'll even include it in the edited version of the podcast. Now, first question I saw was by JD Ban, and JD Ban asked, "Are there any keys going out today?" Yes and no. I have some keys to give away, but I don't want to do a giveaway as a standard giveaway where we have 1,000+ people idling in the channel, typing numbers and things as such. I kind of want these keys to be helpful to the entire community. I posted a giant wall of text on Reddit about this. But what I'm gonna do is at the end of the show, I'm gonna do a little segment called Tip of the Week. This week it's gonna be an example, and then I will ask the question for the podcast episode 3, and you can mail in your answers. Me and the panel members will pick the best answer, and whoever had the best answer will receive a beta key. Why is everybody so
Seems
quiet? I feel
fine.
so alone.
No, you were just doing the introduction, so we were letting you.
Yeah. Okay, so to get a little back and forth going here. One of the things I saw this week on Reddit. Sorry, I have unbelievable cotton mouth, so I'm gonna take a sip of water.
Yeah, go ahead.
Much better. Okay, so one of the things I saw on Reddit this week was people are currently complaining a lot about toxicity. I think the main thing here that's important to keep an eye on is there was a recent wave of beta keys, so we have a fairly larger player pool now in the closed beta, which also means that we have fairly newer players in the beta pool, and I think most of them kind of expected to see some form of a finished product. But unfortunately, this is not the case. So the karma system isn't implemented yet. Matchmaking isn't implemented yet. These are things that are all coming that are all upcoming in the in the next patch, and that means that you have to keep in mind that it's not that means that you have to keep in mind that it's not the way as is as advertised, and that you should be thankful to some degree that you got into the closed beta, because the other side of the medal here is that you have your feedback has a larger chance of your feedback has a larger chance of influencing how the game is further developed.
Yeah,
I
at
agree
this
with that
moment they.
statement.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. This game being in a closed beta state, obviously, the low player pool right now is primarily just been put in place so that the players that are playing can assert their feedback and can share with people that they know about what they feel the game has as far as strengths and weaknesses in contrast to other MOBAs. Now with S2 giving out keys to other players and to other teams and getting other people in here just signifies that they're ready to broaden the testing range, and that has goods and it has bads. I mean, some of the negatives that comes with broadening that range are players from other MOBAs, and we're very well aware of the communities from other MOBAs and what levels of toxicity are in place with other MOBAs. You've got people who are inherently toxic that'll come to a game, and it doesn't really matter what anti-toxic mechanisms you have in play to prevent toxicity. I don't want to say it's in human nature for people to be negative, but there is a trend with these MOBAs that a lot of players expect, especially if they've been playing for quite some time. They expect a certain level of performance and a player to play a certain kind of way. So there's certain things you can't get around when it comes to these games. However, not being able to speak to the opposing team is in my opinion is a great idea. I mean, it prevents that trash talk element that leads to raging and that psychological effect that it has on your team when they start to lose to trash talk, and it just prevents that big ball of toxicity. I mean, the only way that I've found success in getting away from toxicity on your own team by playing with friends. I mean, this is a multiplayer online. This is a game that's online. I mean, you have friends that play the game. Make friends if you don't, and play with them. That's one way to make sure that you don't get that 2 or 3 random guys that just don't want to cooperate and just want to make things harder for you.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the things I think is important at this point in time is to just accept that you're going to run into toxicity to a certain degree, because obviously, creating, developing something, and polishing it, it will take up a lot of time to get it perfect, to get it ready to sell, and I think a lot of people kind of like falsely assume that there will be no toxicity because you've said this, Techie. You can't change human behavior just by stating that you will place mechanics in your game that will allow for reduced toxicity. That's not going to change human behavior. There will always be trolls. There will always be people behaving bad, and of course that's going to get you frustrated. But the thing is that it's important to realize that there's people like you that are running into the same problems that you have, and you need to seek those people out, like you said, actively. What I always do is I have a notepad, and if I had a good game, I just jot down with who and who that hero played, and then I try to seek out contact with those people and form a player base. I'm not talking about a competitive level. When I seek out players to play with, I pay no attention to their skill level. I just look if they're well mannered. And one of the things I really like about Strife currently is the fact that from the get-go there is no all chat, and I think that already has a decent impact on reducing toxicity. One of the things I mainly struggle with is people throwing the game because they're kind of like it's closed beta, and reduced toxicity just means that I can play badly and get away with it and do whatever the hell I want. How about you, Kenny? Do you have some toxic experience so far?
Yeah, there are always people that will be really annoying to you, but for the greater part, my friends list just is compiled of people I like, because if you don't like them, you don't add them to your friends. You don't add them to your games, and that has always been the way to reduce toxicity in your games. And yeah, the alt chat will remove the enemy's toxicity. So that's a fine thing in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm interested in, Techie, is when I played. I mean, Dota 1 had. The only game I played, the only MOBA I played competitively was Dota 1, and Dota 1 had had nothing regarding reduced toxicity, like zero, which is which isn't very good. Um, so I know that in my Dota 1 days, we were kind of elitist and we sought out players that would behave well. For a MOBA like Strife, is that still the case? Is it still the case that that when you start playing competitively, you look out seeking out people differently? Do you take skill into account? How do you find your friends? How do you put yourself in a situation where you come across toxicity, um, as yeah, as less as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this. I've done this in every MOBA that I've ever played. I play to be competitive. I play to win. I play to master my game. Um, I usually surround myself with other players that are very like-minded. They usually put forth that extra effort to make sure that they're doing things right. And if they do things wrong, you know that they're putting forth the effort to make things right. You know they're not just, hey, I'm just going to run down middle lane and feed over and over and over again just because I'm upset. There's not that toxic childish aspect isn't there when you're playing with players that have that competitive experience. They actually care about what it is that they're doing, and they actually care about the impact that they have on the game. Um, when I first started playing Strife, I immediately went after playing with S2 staff and players that I thought were really good. It forces you to step your game up a little bit. It allows for you to experience what gameplay at a higher level is for the MOBA that you're new to, and then it forces you to adapt. And that adaptation is what I think is key for new players. Don't you can go through the tutorial, all right, and play the bots, right? But don't become so frustrated when you get outplayed by something that you think is OP, or become instantly toxic because your team isn't responding to a particular situation that you're not fond of being in. What you need to do is stop for a moment, analyze the situation, say, hey, okay, I know that this is happening this way when I do this. What can I do next time to prevent this from happening? Step your game up, come back harder, gain some knowledge from the game, even if it's a loss, and keep striving, keep moving forward. And I feel like if everyone did that, if every player did that, toxicity wouldn't be as big as it is. It's only an issue when people refuse to evolve, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how toxicity comes to to the world. If they just accept that they lose and learn from it, yeah, it would be way more fun to play all the games. But yeah, sometimes people cannot take losses and will just rage at everyone they can, even if it's their own fault, and even if it isn't, you still should not do that.
Yeah, well, one thing to realize is if we track back in time a little bit, is where the original toxicity came from. Because when Valve was starting to develop Dota 2 with IceFrog, they acquired IceFrog. One of the first statements regarding Dota 2 that Gabe Newell made was that it was a very interesting project, mainly because of the level of toxicity. That there was a certain breed of online gamers with a special form of hate that was so intense. But he also said, if you listened closely, there was like an underlying message that said, it's not totally unreasonable for those people to rage, because back in Dota 1 we didn't have all these nifty systems and the community wasn't so big, and basically it would boil down to this: if you had one or two people fucking up a game for you in the first 10 minutes, you still had to sit out your game of like an hour or an hour plus. And that bred a special type of player with a great wrath and furious anger inside that just wanted to rip at every newbie. Because nobody wants to throw an hour of their life or more away for a bad game. And that's kind of where that comes from. But Techie said an interesting thing, and it's something that I really go by. I said this in episode 1 for the first year of Dota. I've lost like almost 90% of my matches, both competitive and non-competitive. Um, but I just saw that as a learning opportunity. I analyzed the situation and said, "Hey, what's going wrong here? Why am I losing? Why am I so bad? What's going wrong?" I didn't seek blame in others. Of course, I was raging when things went bad, but you still have to look at yourself and say, okay, what can I take from this bad game? It was a bad game, but was there something to be learned? Of course, there's going to be games where your team just sucks and things are going to go wrong. Those games still happen. But the primary focus, in my idea, the primary focus should lie with you. Try to better yourself as a player. And the way you do that, is something I want to hear everybody's tips on this, both in the chat and from the panel. Is how do you deal with your own rage?
I've found. I was actually just thinking about that now. It's interesting that you said that. Playing, not necessarily playing with my friends, right? But being in if I ever solo queue, right, or YOLO queue and go into a game by myself, right, and I get a
YOLO
group,
cue.
I get a group of, people that I don't know, randoms, and I'm in my comms with my friends. I find it very helpful to be able to express my frustrations with my friends and comms, and then cool down a little bit while talking to them instead of taking it out on everyone in chat, and then seeing what I can do to kind of pick up the weight a little bit. In Strife, for example, if you know that a top lane's getting shut down, right, and they just raging and furious, can mid lane come help us, please? Just spitting venom all over the chat, right? Um, you know, Express your frustration in comms with your friends, and then say, "Hey, okay, I'm gonna buy warp boots and warp up there, and we'll turn a double kill into we'll turn that double kill, in top lane, and then you guys can get ahead and win your lane." And then it kind of just balances things out a little bit. The issue with toxicity is that once it starts boiling, no one wants to turn the flame down. Everyone wants to add more into the pot, and make this toxic stew. If people would say, "Hey, okay, well, what are you upset about? Let me help you. Let me come top lane. All right, you're pinging bot. Respond. Responsiveness. Responding to your team. That's key. That's why these games exist. The original reason for these games existing was for people to be able to connect with each other online and have fun in a game that they both like. You know,
Yeah,
that's
exactly. And one of the best examples of what I've ever come across is when is for example if you know this is classic Dota 1. First blood. Oh shit, here comes the flame. Everybody would rip you a new one. But what if somebody would have said, hey guy, dude, relax. Don't worry. You'll get him next time." That can completely change a player's feeling about the game.
Mm,
That'll
nah, I gotta disagree in that one because I'm the kind of person that says that kind of things, and believe me, then the rage is gonna start. Then, a few people are like, "All right, it's cool," They ask for help or some tips. The rest just go flame on, full out torch, and they'll let you know what they think of you, even though you haven't played yet.
Yeah. By the way, FYI, just saying things like you should do more damage or something is not considered constructive feedback. That does not help when somebody's doing bad.
what what Malfrix just said there. He's asked advice from ragers, and then them calming down from asking. That's true to an extent. I've found in my gaming experience that if you actually just connect for a moment with the person that's raging and say, "Okay, what can I do right?" You usually will diffuse their rage just with kindness. "Okay, look, I'm sorry. What is it that I'm doing wrong, and how can I do it better?" Now, there's always that, one or two times you'll get the guy and he'll be like, "Hey, no, you need to uninstall the game. That's what you can do right." But usually what you'll get is, "Don't buy this item, get this item, do this, don't do that, and then do this." And then if you legitimately give it a shot and it works out for you, it works out for you, and then rage goes away.
Now, this is something nothing going said. Um, Most of my anger comes from new players refusing to ask questions. I really dislike people like that. And I think that's a valid argument. Because after all, it is a team game, and I think Strife has done a really good job with the tutorial because it's a tutorial that's actually very helpful, and they have that kind of questing feeling which I like. It just shakes things up a bit. It's not like here's a minion, you have to kill it, and look, you gained an ability, and 5 minutes, that's it, you're done. Go get yourself torn a new one. Um, Sorry, but we all know that once you did one bot game or two bot games and you transfer into playing with actual humans, that it gets a lot more toxic really fast. But one of the things that really upsets me is when I'm the type that really likes to help people. I get a good feeling by that, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, like I think I'm better than you, but well, 2 weeks ago there was this Moxie, and he was doing a wrong item build, and I didn't rage at him like, oh God, Moxie, what are you building? Do you even know how to play? Go play Tetris. But instead I said, hey Moxie, after this game is over, if you want some tips, just say so. And he said yes. And then we let it rest for the game, and I just tried to. And he started asking questions. He started asking like, okay, what do I build now? I have this much gold. And then everybody advised him, and he didn't. He didn't perform. I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't that great. But at least he wasn't horror bad just because he interacted with us. And when um, when when sorry, when players really turn to themselves because they get confronted with a certain level of toxicity, that doesn't really help you out. You'll kind of get stuck in that because then you'll have no feedback on what to actually do, and that really infuriates me. Like, why won't you seek out help? There's four other players here that are most likely wanting to win this game, so they're likely to help you if you ask. Because whenever I play a new hero, I always start by saying, "Hey guys, I don't want to go solo. I'm not that great with this hero yet. Please provide me with any tips you have." And you'd be amazed what people actually how people actually respond to that.
Yeah, even the ragers that later on will rage will help you in the beginning because they go in the game being very nice and stuff, but if something goes wrong, they get mad. But before that, they are helpful.
Gulliver hit it right on point there with that statement. Matchmaking will alleviate a lot of the elitist kind of, hey man, you suck just because I'm an elitist type of thing. Coming from MOBAs where you've achieved extremely high MMR or ELO. Yeah, a lot of players expect certain things when they come into games because they're so used to playing with other players that are at their skill level, right? If you come into a new game that does not have an established matchmaking system, um, automatically you're setting things up for bullying and that elitist or situation uh, out of some players, not everyone, but some. When matchmaking drops, you know, elitists and high-ranking players simply won't see the lower-ranking players. I mean, it won't be there unless those supposedly higher-ranking players drop off for some reason and hit that low-tier MMR. They just won't come across each other. You'll have your time, you'll have your chance at the lower tier to improve yourself and climb through the ranks. And one thing I've noticed as you climb out of certain MMRs, things start to become a little bit more professional. Players start to do things a little bit more automatic. There's less rage because players are more mechanically proficient and more team oriented. And all of these things should be goals and yeah, like goals for players who aspire to be better at a certain game. Some of the negatives are to be expected, but as you climb, you will escape a lot of what seems to be inevitable.
Yeah, and that's what I'm curious about. Because after Dota 1, I never really got into that competitive scene anymore. If you're doing scrims, you have to practice. So I imagine you seek out a certain level of plays to keep your skills up. If you're just pop face dumping, all the time, I don't think that's very good practice now, is it? So is it if you're looking at like that higher level of players, is it a given that the toxicity will be less? Because there are some cases known in League of Legends where pro players who actually make a living playing that game rage so bad that they get barred from the game and barred from the pro circuit, basically raging themselves out of a job. So is it a given that the toxicity is less in this game on the higher levels by default?
I will have to say yes. there are those few occasions where some players, like Incarnation from LoL, and I'm familiar with what happened to I forget his name, the TSM backups. I'm familiar with what happened, but playing at Diamond 1, climbing from that low gold to D1, was a very interesting experience. You can expect more toxicity at the lower tier simply because players are just, I don't want to say bad people, but they're just more frustrated with the fact that they can't get away from things that are happening to them so frequently that keep them at that MMR. And as you climb, now I'm not certain that the matchmaking system that S2 will implement will be similar to leagues in any way. But when speaking about league, when you climb through the ranks, you see something. You start to see this pattern, right, of toxicity, not so toxic, and then on point. And then it'll go through your divisions up till about Diamond 3. Once you get to about Diamond 3, things are happening. People aren't frustrated. You're in the character select, and everyone's like, okay, what roles do you play? I know that I have pick order over you, but hey, man, what are you good at? Because I'm good at this. Once again, the player is more mechanically proficient at the game, Instead of, I can only play bot, I'm going to play bot. You will let me play bot, or I will feed. You don't see that at those higher, those
bot or
top tiers. Yeah, you don't encounter that.
Well, that's true. I haven't come, even though I've had my last 3 days, for 3 days straight, I've had really bad games, and most of those games had a certain level of toxicity, higher than I would like it to be. Um, but not during one of those games did I get into a situation where it was bot or feed. But I think, solo or feed. But I think this is also partially to do because of the smaller hero pool, because you are less likely to pick two competing heroes for the same lane. It's less likely.
That's absolutely true. And in fact, in League, it doesn't happen at all in the ranked system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
Before
ahead.
you go ahead, StrawhatKenny, I have one announcement to make. First of all, it's simply heartwarming to see the viewer count go up and up. That's just kind of amazing. Um, but I have one important thing to stress. And as I said that, the viewer count dropped. Oh, the irony. I have two things I'd like to just quickly pop in the stream. Marky X did make it, so he's now in the live stream. He joined us. He's the article writer for Strife HQ, so that's cool. We have his vision on the topics we're going over tonight. That's cool. I have seen some questions about the giveaway, and I just want to save. And if some of our viewers are currently tuned into this podcast because they think we're going to do a simple giveaway where somebody has to guess a number. That's not what we're doing with the show. At the end of the show, I'm going to ask people to send in tips. And then over the course of the week, we will gather those tips. We will evaluate them, pick the best one, and go over that tip on the next episode in depth with our opinions and stuff. And that person will get awarded a beta key. So if you're only here for the beta key, I don't oppose that. That's cool, but I want to be straightforward with all you guys because this might go on for a while because we're collecting, material to edit later. And I think personally, I think it would suck for you if you're only, writing this out for the beta key. We're gonna do. You have to earn the beta key. We're not gonna randomly do it. And the reason I bring this up is because I said somebody. I saw somebody say there's X people in the stream, so I like my chances. But you can just download the edited version on Sunday, and then skip all the way to the end, and then listen to the question, which is like 2 minutes, and then delete the podcast or something, and then you're still entitled to winning the key. But we're not going to do a standard giveaway because I want to build Strife Talk with the community, which is why we have different people coming on each week, which is why the format is open, why we interact, and all those things. So I kind of want to, continue that philosophy onto the giveaway. So that was my public service announcement. And now let's continue. StrawhatKenny, yes, go!
Oh, I completely forgot what I was gonna say, mate.
Uh, I can actually chime in here on something. Mhm. Hale and Melee champions, Hillary Clinton. I think in the state of the mobile right now, with with Strife, Melee champs have it a tad bit harder than ranged champs, simply because of the power mechanism and caster spells. In this game right now, in this player pool, CC is king. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of different mechanisms put in place for characters to kite, and not many for our melees. Hail is one of my favorite melees, out of the few that exist. Then Minerva. Hail has a very unique initiating ability when paired with Spring Boots that I have spoken on before and that I have recommended to people. He has an initiate that follows up similar to Tidecaller's Ravage. It does an AoE knockup and disables the entire area for X amount of time, right? Spring in, catch an entire team off guard, drop that ult, Vex on top with a Ray ring followed by a Moxie ult, and you've got yourself a wipe, a T1, T2, and or a generator. You know what I mean? And it's thinking about what the melee character is lacking, but then looking at their pros and then seeing how you can fit that in to your comp is what's key when playing a melee. Or you could simply go attack speed 80, rush, backdooring, similar to your Tryndamirs from League. For those of you that are here from League, similar to that style of play, sit in the lane and farm. You can do that too, but I feel like the melee players, the characters that are in the game right now, have a very unique presence in the laning phase and then in the late game team fight.
Well, one of the things is that we can safely say that if you're two melee in a lane and you're up against two ranged, that the two ranged are gonna come out on top. But what I do very much like about the melee heroes is when you take Ace, for example. They just made him shine at what he does best, which is just jumping in and initiating. And I mean, if a bow gets rolling, he also has so much survivability. And normally, what I'm used to in MOBAs is that if you have a melee hero and you have I'm not gonna say a bad laning phase, but if you have a decent laning phase, not so much a good laning phase, that you're still gonna feel heavily impacted by the fact that you are a melee hero. Um, and I find that in Strife, it's just it just feels right, so to speak. You can be okay with the ace, and you can still have a good impact on the game.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. I mean, the melee kit is just so strong on most characters. I mean, let's take a look at Bo. Look at his ability to initiate, pop some damage reduction, give off an AoE stun, an AoE slow, an AoE heal, and an AoE displacement disrupting ability that stuns on terrain. I mean, it's unbelievable how much CC that he has as a melee character, and he's not someone that you want to have auto attacking to death with some form of AD build. Uh, as your traditional melees, but he is a melee that can completely destroy the back end of an opposing team if left to do whatever he wants.
Marky, what's your take on this?
Um, well, when it comes to melee, I mean, yeah, usually it's always been a curse in the MOBA genre that melee has always been a somewhat of a disadvantage, but I feel that Strife certainly proved, like, through the proper character design mechanics, actually made it far easier for melee to become an actual threat. And as Tekkie said, bows. I think it was you or someone else who I saw who had uh, was it a more movement-based bow that just went with high auto attack and high speed, and bow was just insanely tough with that. And then you got like characters like such as Bastion, who has an amazing AoE shield, has probably one of the better ways to stun somebody right through creeps, and pretty decent ultimate. And then we have finally Ace, who the guy just has a bunch of slows and has ways to just do instant kill death damage on some well. So, I mean, to say the least, I think the melees in this game are very. They certainly have their roles in the game, and as we've seen in the Stripe HQ tournaments, especially with the use of Bastion, that they certainly play a role. I don't think that they're overpowered, though. I mean, when you compare it to other characters like, say, Ray or Malady or Moxie, who could deal continuous long-range damage or have a tons of utility, I don't view melee as... Actually, I don't really see a huge balance gap between the two sides. I think they're pretty close, and as you mentioned before, bow, a properly played bow is damn scary, to say the least.
I think out of all the melee heroes currently in Strife, I always fear when a bow gets free farm. That's what I fear the most in my games, because from my experience, out of all the melee heroes, when bow gets truly fed, well, I don't really like the term fed, but when bow is kind of on a roll, he's the hardest to shut down, because his kit is just so good. I won't go as far to say that he's OP, but it becomes very hard to really shut him down. And also when he's been on a roll, but I'll let StrawhatKenny pimp his damage bow in a bit. When he's really on a roll, even if he does get shut down for that one or two team fights, I've never really seen a bow truly get shut down after that. Normally a bow just, kind of like naturally seems to pick it up again. And I don't really know why that is.
One thing I sort of noticed, though, and especially with people who have like complained about like tanky with a lot of damage and so forth, like with that Reddit thread, was nobody really decides on building defenses or counters and using a ton of the utilities offered in the game. Like, there are so many items in the game that can counter certain situations, but yet nobody builds them. Like, for example, I don't see anybody building Numbing Lantern. I don't see anybody building Cursed Wand, which is a single target slow with defensive decrease. I don't see anyone building that AoE slow item. I forgot what name it is. There's Stone Skin, which is remove CC, and you get damage reduction for 6 seconds, 25%. It's not like S2 hasn't provided the tools to counter these tough melee guys, but one thing I just noticed is that players who most often complain about it, they're the ones who build straight power squishy characters and wonder why they get their ass kicked so quickly.
Yeah, we talked about this before. We talked about this earlier today, Marky. When people that I think my exact words were, if a Moxie only builds power items and then gets his ass handed to him by Fed Bow, he has it coming and he deserves it. And I think that's kind of true, because because this ties into the toxicity we talked about earlier. Basically what that means is that you as a player, yes, you, not your team, you as a player did not take into consideration what was happening in the game, and basically did not properly evaluate your part of the game. And this is not meant condescending, because I'm a mediocre player at best, and if you don't believe me, go watch the video on demands for today. um, but I think it's very important that while this MOBA emphasizes on reduced toxicity, you at the same point do not take it as a given that you are going down easy street. You still need to play the game. And I know that they market it as the MOBA for people scared of MOBAs, and that it's the easier MOBA, but you still have to take some level of personal responsibility in your for your role in the team, and that means closely paying an eye to your surroundings, and also evaluating your build, and being quick on your feet to adjust your build for the different threats that you're going to meet on the battlefield. Like Kenny, if you know you have a very specific play style for bow. You said I go damage, I do the damage bow. But when you're being shut down, when you're having a bad game, how do you assess the situation then? Do you still build the same thing, or what do you do?
Yeah,
How do you get back on top?
usually what I do, because I'm a bow, my main role still usually is initiating. But if my other goal is, of course, a shitload of damage, because if I get everyone in my ultimate, they'll die. They'll just die. So I will try to get one of our squishy ones to bait it and just jump over a wall and then take him. But I do a damage bow, so I am not that tanky, so I know I can die rather easily. So I accept that. If things don't go right for me and I just fuck up, I will most likely die, and I accept that. My team will benefit most from it though if I hit at least 3 of them with my ultimate. I will displace them, make sure that the other 2 will die, and the other ones just cannot do anything anymore. And that's pretty much how I deal with it. But there are situations where I just think, alright, let's get a giant spell, to get some health up, and I still get some extra ability power to serve in my damage build. I can just get a little bit less damage, but I will get additional survivability. If I need that, I will do that.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to add though is, I mean, going back to what you said about, yeah, even though this was marketed as a game for people who don't like MOBAs or anything like that, um, S2 Games has provided numerous ways for new players to understand the items. I mean, the way the shop system is designed and the simple descriptions, I it's not really excusable to completely ignore these additional items because they go straight forward to the point on what exactly that they do, which is something that you don't see in other MOBAs like Dota and League of Legends. It just gives you a slew of items and you're looking at them going, what the hell is all this crap? It, if you're a new player, my tip would be look at the item shop and go and just start examining to see what could certainly help you in that situation because like I said, it's very straightforward how they design the item system and everything, so it's very noob friendly to say the least.
That's very much true. The limited hero pool does really enable you to take if we take what I just said, the limited hero pool should enable new players to quickly adapt to their surroundings. There's not a bazillion heroes that all do different things, so then you know, you have to play it for at least a year before you have a decent understanding of what can kill you, what's the range of what hero. You can pick this up rather quickly, because again. Um, you can look at a situation where you lose a game at 2 points. If you're a carry and you have a tank, I think we can all agree that the tank is supposed to shield you. But if you decide to charge in every single time and get in front of your tank, and then you get stunned, and people do their full rotation on you, and you get insta killed, then you have some personal responsibility in that. Um, and if you pay attention to your surroundings and you if you pay attention to your surroundings and you basically look at what a hero's kit is and what a hero can do, then then in Strife with the limited hero pool, you'll be able to categorize danger threats. You'll be able to categorize danger a lot, yeah, a lot quicker than in other MOBAs because there's less to remember.
I agree with that statement. Touching down on that, on a statement that was made about the blessed orb and the dragon shield and the chalice. I am known for running that chalice healing rod combo on Minerva, and it's surprisingly successful. A lot of players underestimate the health return that you gain from healing rod. Throw a chalice on top of that with the healing you get from mana spent, and all of the sudden you're not dying. You're taking incredible amounts of damage and you're back to full almost seemingly with no effort. Not factoring in the turtle pet there, but there's a lot of builds that can be used to counter, for say, certain situations that you usually would have a hard time dealing with. I have some builds that I run, like the Blast Orb Chalice into the Healing Rod, also on Minerva. Then when she stacks her shield, Blast Orb improves that shield, also improves the health return on the Chalice, and then both of them scaling up the Healing Rod. I mean, there's a lot that you can do if you actually take the time to evaluate the items, their legendary benefits in the craft, and actually try to put together some sets. You can build some very unique things with Strife that I haven't found in any other MOBA. That crafting system gives this game a very unique touch, and a uniqueness that I haven't found in any other MOBA that I really enjoy. I enjoy going in and crafting and making that item that, well, I can say, hey, I can go into a Moxie lane as Minerva and use this and have zero problems with poke from Moxie, you know? Every time I W, I heal for 50, you know, and then gain 2 stacks of a regenerating shield. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do and use in this game to improve your chances in lane that people need to take the time to evaluate.
Yeah, but what about lane switching? Because that's something I rarely see. I encountered it only one game where people were like, okay, we're gonna do a lane switch, and in other MOBAs it's much more common. If you run a certain lane combination and you have the idea that that's gonna give you the upper hand, and then after the 3-minute mark, um, it, it becomes clear that you're being outplayed, so you need to make some adjustment, because obviously you're starting to see that you're getting outplayed, so you know that if you continue this strategy, something's going to go wrong. And for somewhat strange reason, I don't really see this happening in Strife, at least not in in pub plays. I don't know how this applies to the competitive scene. Do you think there's any specific reason why that is?
Well, usually, at least for me, when I lane with a partner and we are winning the lane and the top lane is losing and you are middle, then if the top lane is losing and you are winning, then there is a chance that that you can switch, but it could also possibly be that then both lanes are losing, So I think there's a small thought about it, but I also think that the middle players just then want to keep their winning up, They don't want to have a hard opponent then.
Yeah, stick with the momentum. If you're winning a lane, keep pushing, and if you get that tower down, the two guys can start being freed up to move into other lanes. I mean, I'm not a competitive player by any means, but I honestly cannot see a situation where it would be beneficial to switch unless it's out of sheer desperation.
An interesting thing just came up. Randwheel, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Randwheel said the only really customizable thing with crafting is the recipe. Rare and legendary effects are basically linear.
I'm going to. I guess you can say there is a system. Yes, there's tiers of things that have been put in this game that you will find that you can get on any item. But the RNG factor is getting that bonus, the rare that you would like, getting that bonus on that item that's particular to the character that you want to use it for. That's where the RNG factor comes in. You don't just get, hey, I got a power conduit with power as the rare, supplemented by the power % bonus on the legendary effect, or a one-shot legendary with both of those bonuses, which is the ultimate win-win situation, right? Sometimes you can go through 1,000 ore and however many mats and get nothing that you have been looking forward to getting. Get nothing, not getting the item that you wanted after spending all those resources that you played for days trying to stack up. I mean, it's still a very rewarding situation to craft an item that has everything that you need without having to farm it all up for 2 to 3 weeks. You get that item, you want to keep it.
It's one of the things I really love about this game is it just stands out. You basically, what other MOBA has this? You get a tool to create something to supplement your playstyle. Not a general playstyle, no, your specific playstyle. Because, for example, I really like kiting, and I was able to further improve the Frostfang, and the legendary effect was that you get extra movement speed on each hit. And I mean, if basically I built that item with kiting in mind, so that's like an item that makes you go, oh. No other MOBA has that, and it feels very rewarding that by playing and playing and playing, you get to build. You basically get to unlock a class that's tailored to your playstyle. You can level your pet that has all those nifty little bonuses that just further complement your playstyle, and you have and you can build that specific item that you felt was missing from the game. I think that's just pretty baller.
Yeah, you gotta say, it feels really well because sometimes you have items with health regen on it while you're like, yeah, well, those two health regions are not gonna help me in a team fight, you know? I prefer to have either power or mana or even mana regen. And that crafting tool really helps you with that.
Well, one of the things I'm a little concerned about is when new players come into the game. I know there's going to be matchmaking, so that will take your skill and your played games into account, hopefully. But one of the things I'm still scared about is how your crafted items are going to affect the balance of the game, because I mean, I've played this game a lot since I got my closed beta key, but I'm noticing that the people I'm playing with tend, as a general rule of thumb, tend to have more crafted items than I have, and maybe that's just because I'm pumping everything into one item as opposed to crafting items over and over again because I really want to temper that item, so I'm saving up my elixir. Um, but sometimes, you know, I'm a little scared that over time, given enough time, that will snowball out of control. Like there will be people having all pets unlocked, and then there's some people who have a certain level of play, so they're able to play the game well, but they just don't have a mechanism to counter what somebody who's been playing this game longer and doesn't necessarily have to be a better player has tied to his account. How would you counter that? And how do you think that would affect the competitive scene?
Well, its effect on the competitive scene will probably be very nil. I don't see it really affecting the competitive scene too much, simply because most of us competitive players will have almost all, a lot of the pets. I have 5 of the pets unlocked already, 4 of which are maxed, and and we're crafting and we're playing very frequently, and we're doing what we need to do to make diverse sets of items that supplement what we do in lane, right? Now, for the player that can't play as much as that competitive guy that he comes across in a pub game, and he sees level 9 Razor with legendary Fellblade versus common and an infant Razor, you're at an immediate disadvantage. And I can completely agree with what you said about that. Now, what they're going to need to do to counter that is put a requirement to play in certain, in matchmaking. I don't care if it's ranked or however they go about doing this, but they're going to need to put a you cannot participate in matchmaking until this or that happens. You've unlocked this and this and this of at least 2 or 3 pets, or you have maxed a pet, or you have done this and this. There needs to be some form of objective or some form of accomplishment that you need to do in order to play at a competitive level. If they don't do that, I can easily see players becoming frustrated with, I can't compete with a maxed out pet and a legendary craft. Well, what you can do is, and I don't want to sound, cruel, but toughen up. I mean, play the game. I mean, get with your friends and play the game. Get the mats, put in the time, farm, level your pets, craft your items. I mean, these rewards come from dedication. Nothing's going to be given. There are no hand-me-downs. There's not going to nothing worth fighting for is free in this life. If you want that strong pet, if you want 2 pets that are great, if you want 3 pets that are great, if you want that craft, you're going to have to put in the time. I can't begin to tell you how many days I've stayed up farming relentlessly just to get a pet because I spent 1,000 food on a pet that I don't even use. That I completely got because I thought it would be cool to try out, and then competition comes and I find out that I have 3 of the wrong pets. Now it's time to farm again.
Yeah, well, that is kind of how you have to do it. Just toughen it out because people coming into the game earlier always have an advantage because they know how to play the game. But that's with every game. You just need to know how to play the game, get your materials, get focus on a few kind of people. Like go for a rook and a vermilion. You'll get the same kind of items, both damage items. Go for something else, but don't go for everything at the same time. You just need to toughen it out. Just get what you want and take your time.
Priestacos21 asked a question. He said, in my account, will there be a leave percentage and what penalties can be auto-applied to it? I don't think, at least I haven't seen anything in regards to that come across my screen. I don't have the info on this.
No,
Did I miss it or?
Yeah, well, they're gonna implement that karma system, right? You'll get lesser chests, so you won't be able to get your items fast enough, or it will take you an incredibly long time.
Yeah, that's what we kind of missed on the toxicity discussion we did earlier on the show. Is we didn't really, which is funny actually, we didn't really talk about the underlying. We didn't really talk about the underlying mechanics that S2 has placed in this game to properly incentivize the players to not behave in a toxic manner. And one of those things is indeed that you will get lower chests, the karma system. We talked a little bit about this last week. I expressed my concerns because, if people are going to rage at you for playing bad and will auto spam down karma or negative karma, does that automatically mean that if you want to try new things like a new item build or want to toy around with a new champion or a new hero, that you're automatically damned to doing bot games until you're at an acceptable level of play? And what I haven't seen them about is if there is a percent leave, if there is a percent leave percentage, and if penalties will be applied. For now, what we do know is that if you leave a game, you can't participate in another game until you're until the game you were originally in is finished. So I think that's a good thing. But I guess it kind of makes sense to also tie that into lowering your chest rewards. Or is that too unfair? I don't think it's unfair because leaving is one of the worst things you can do.
Yeah, it's completely fair. Lever Buster needs to be there. Just like in Dota, if you leave, you get 1 free leave. If you leave again, you're thrown into the poop tier. And you deserve to sit there and seriously, and you deserve to sit there and bask in that filth because it takes a certain it takes a certain kind of person to commit 60 minutes at most usually to a game with other people, all right, that care about what they're doing, only to leave the game and leave them in a situation where they will inevitably lose, right? But they don't want to leave because they don't want what you're so graciously ready to take as a punishment for leaving. So they endure this battle, lose the game anyway, right? Only for you to what? Reconnect and for no punishment go to another game and play? No, you deserve to receive less awards. 111 chests, if that. If it were up to me, you wouldn't get any chests at all. And you'd be put on a competitive cooldown for 30 to 40 minutes after the duration of the game that you left has ended.
That are the good kind of punishments. They need to get a little bit more strict, not only in Strife, but that has to go to every single game in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that we need to really crack down on people who leave because that's the worst kind of toxicity in my opinion. Although, and this could just be me, I have the idea that, but maybe it's a coincidence, that when I do stick out a game that has levers in it, for example, one or two rage quitters, that my chest rewards are actually higher at the end of the game.
I have
Did anybody
not
else?
noticed that. Not at all. I've not seen that.
I don't have any obviously factual statements to apply to that, but I do support that theory. There may be some form of link between achievements or rewards earned after the game, or that you've been calculated to earn after the game, that are tied in with your chests, and also the difficulty of being in a 4v5 situation. You might receive bonuses for sticking it out through the game, and you may receive better chests by obtaining those better rewards. I've noticed when I got the chipper, or have dealt most damage to players, or did this or did that, that I've gotten 10 and 9 and 7 chests. There might be some kind of hidden mechanic that we haven't discovered yet.
Yeah, it's always fun to speculate, but only time will tell. But I do think that that they're keeping a close eye on it. So I don't feel, even though I have to say this, I was very let down that the unique selling point of the game, reduced toxicity, wasn't in effect yet uh, when I won my closed beta key. That was kind of a shocker to me. But I do think that, on Reddit and stuff, that they do keep a close eye on it. And I think they do care about us as a player base, and they really want to improve their game. It was actually yesterday that somebody posted that the YouTube ad for Strife was wrong, and it just got a zillion replies. And S2 jumped in, and basically the overall response to the thread was, there, it's gonna be K. You just have to wait it out a little bit. And maybe it's interesting for us to give one tip each on how to stick it out, because I'll go first. One of the things I do is I have um, I have a little sweatband. Yeah, very 80s, I know. And whenever I get really angry because I fail, or because I'm in a toxic situation where my team fails, I take the band, and I pull it. I just go and I pull it, and that, for some strange reason, that calms me down. Um, and that actually prevents me from spiraling down that negative field, that vat of negativity, and rubbing it off on my team, because I do think that once one or more of your teammates consistently start behaving in a toxic manner, um, that really puts an effect on the game, and really diminishes your chances of winning, because one of the things in Strife is that there's so much emphasis on your team performance and so much less room for individual performance. You cannot, even if you pick an OP hero. I don't think at this point we really have any OP heroes in Strife, but even if there was an OP hero, I don't think you could very much solo carry your team to victory. Or am I wrong here?
No, you cannot solo carry your team unless the other team is extremely bad, like in they're just new people, because then it's of course it's possible. But if you are against evenly matched people in skills, there's just no way you can solo carry anything. But wanting to solo carries, I would not want that. If you have to do everything in your team, what would be the fun in that?
Um, One thing I do uh, to deal with that, I told you guys about talking to teammates. I'm sure Ryzen is going to love this. Is the practicing of Kaizen. It's continuous improvement of oneself. You go into a game, you come in confident. Come in confident, and you say, "Hey, I'm ready to win. I got my A game on. This is what I'm going to do in my lane." If you lose in the lane, don't fall. If something's not going right for you, I don't drop in this ball of toxicity and start hating myself. I immediately, and this is just who I am. I want to be a better person. I want to continuously improve myself and evolve and adapt to situations that put me in a place of negativity, because that's how I want to be. I don't like being frustrated and upset all the time. It's not good for health. It's not good for your life. It's not good for your energy. Is just bad. It's bad. So what I do is I evaluate the situation. I say, okay, this guy's working me, man. What does he have that I don't? Okay, I need to unlock that, man. I want to try it. I want to try what he's doing and see how it works for me. If after I lose, I immediately go into the crafting system. I go look at my pets, man. I put together a system, and I'm even more excited to go into the next game versus the same person, because now I can see if what I learned, will be successful for me. And usually it is. If I get worked and I practice and I modify what it was that I did wrong, look at my own replay, do whatever I need to do to improve, and I come in and I do it, that is more rewarding, honestly, than just stomping someone. It happens, but I prefer not to stomp people. I prefer to go in a lane versus someone that will give me a good match, right? And even in some situations work me, because it allows for me to improve, and that's what it needs to be all about. People need to seek that improvement, that self-improvement first. You come into the game expecting to win and hoping to win, but if you don't, at least you improve, as long as you take something positive out of it.
I could not agree more. It's the PG-13 version of my of my rant a little bit earlier. You said it a little bit nicer. But it's the same philosophy. You just have to look at your own actions and then really reassess what went wrong. Now, continuing on about and let's work towards the end here, because OBS is indicating that we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes approximately. And the more we talk, the more we drift away from the nice, clean, between 30 and 45-minute edited version of the podcast. We've had the recent patch in place. I feel that Caprice is now a lot more viable to take into the battlefield. Now, with the recent patch in place for a while now, which hero or item do you feel is most in need of tweaking, and how do you feel? We've had a tournament now. How do you feel that the recent patch has impacted the competitive scene as it stands? I think you can best start with this question, Techie, and and then StrawhatKenny can follow up, and then I'll give my take.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what items.
Dragon Shield. I've had numerous debates with various S2 staff that have one who indicated to me that it was the worst item in the game, and I'm sure he had no mathematical reasoning behind that. But this item, okay, offers a effective health cap in the form of a shield that scales with power. Now, automatically, that should ring bells that there is an issue, and an issue that could become overpowered when supplemented with other items. This item basically is an approved form of Bastion's E, which grants you a damage absorption shield, once again, that scales with power, that acts as a form of effective health. Okay? Any item ever that can be obtained for the small price that item is obtainable for, that can be stacked with another item to improve its effects, or a player that can improve its effects, immediately starts introducing balance issues. I feel like Dragon's Shield may receive a nerf bat. They may change the mechanic of how it scales, maybe with player levels versus power. But it really is an item that offers way too much survivability on squishier magical or physical carry rolls. And it's one of those items, man, that if you throw a Bastion in there and he pops his E on top of your Dragon Shield, and throw a Tinder in there, and you have a Blessed Orb rolling around, you won't die. You literally won't die, man. After about 700 damage, your shield's finally broken. Now you got a whole health pool and mitigatable defenses up that your opponents still have to eat through. And I feel like that's one thing that might receive a nerf bat. For me, Dragon Shield is probably one of the few items in the game that brings too much of that OP feeling in there.
Yeah, I gotta agree on the Dragon Shield. It's quite strong. However, it is like the only thing that's effective against someone who builds against me when you're squishy. Because if there's a Moxie without a Dragon Shield running around when I'm damaged bow, he's gonna die instantly if there's no Dragon Shield. So I don't know what to do with it, but I do gotta say there has to change something.
I agree with you, Kenny. I find it quite strange that so many people have a issue with Dragon Shield. It's in the game, that's a given. And yes, granted, it could use some tweaking. But I don't think it's broken or OP or that there's so much wrong with it per se. I really like the philosophy. It gives those glass cannons a better trend of survivability. And personally, I feel that most of the defense items are currently a bit underwhelming. They're either too. It's my personal opinion that they're either a little bit, too expensive, gold-wise, or that they just don't cut it. And Dragon Shield is one of those items I'm excited about, but I think it's a little bit too cost efficient. So my advice would be to bump up the gold a bit, the gold cost a bit, and make it scale a little bit less with power. I do like that it scales because obviously if you would get it and it wouldn't scale, and other abilities of what's actually hurting you would scale, that would make Dragon Shield a far less viable item. And what I would also change about Dragon Shield is the time it takes to regen the shield. I would up that just a bit, just a little bit. But as it currently stands, I don't really have a gripe with Dragon Shield. Now, one of the things that I think could use some tweaking after this patch is the range of Moxie's W, because Moxie has that natural kiting ability. It's what he was designed for. It's what he does best. But I think his W is just a little bit too long to range.
I actually have no problem with Moxie's W because it's incredibly easy to dodge. It might be really far, but you can just take your time and dodge it in the very end. There's no problem for me with that one.
Right. That kind of falls in on prediction, man. I mean, it's that kind of ability it's almost too easy to dodge. A lot of players need to break out of this running backwards to avoid that W. All you have to do is
sidestep. You need to step sideways.
Yeah, all you have to do literally is sidestep. Like, not even 50 range. Just sidestep just a little bit and it'll go right by you. A lot of players, for some reason, like to run backwards at an angle and they just run into it every single time. Sidestepping.
Yeah, I did that today.
Yeah, sidestepping is definitely what's the key.
I just want to give a big heads up here to Gulliver. Wow. Yeah. Okay, that is so true. Gulliver in the chat said, if you're feeling that your defensive items are not cutting it in terms of damage for you, then recraft your defensive items with power components. Conversely, if you're feeling that the damage items are not giving you enough defense, recraft them with some health. And yes, that is one of the things that the crafting system is for. And that is, it's funny how easy you forget that when you look at what you have. Because Strife is the game that actually provides you with a mechanism to look at it with what you could have. And you know what, Gulliver? Are you in closed beta yet? I think you are.
Yeah, he's on my team.
He's on your team. Oh yeah, I'm not that familiar with the competitive scene yet. So heads off to that. Do you have somebody that you could very much please with a closed beta key? Because this is one of the tips that I'd like to see in the weekly tip segments, and this one came out of nowhere, and this was so good that I'd like to reward that with a closed beta key. But only if you have good use for it. If you're just gonna, throw it in another random giveaway, then perhaps we could, make somebody else happy with it. But if you have use for it, then wait, I'm not sure how to respond to that. I'm a bit
Nah,
sleepy now.
he's catching up. Just give him a few seconds.
Oh, see, yeah, there. Okay, then after the stream, I'll send you a key. All right. I don't know if anybody has something to add that I'd really like to go over for this episode.
No,
base
fine.
stats.
He's gonna sell it on eBay.
Hey, base stats for the community. Something to learn. Food for thought. Go to Strife HQ if you have not. Look up the character info. Learn the base stats for the different characters and how they gain stats while progressing through levels. You will start to see a pattern between tanks, ranged carries, and melee carries, and then you'll see something that stands out a lot on Bo. He scales a lot better than 90% of every character in this game right now as the game progresses, which is why it feels like he can be doing poorly, and then all of a sudden, with no items, erupt as this disruptive force. Learning the base stats on the characters is something that I recommend to a lot of people because you can learn how to supplement those stats with certain items and do different builds and things that complement your style. Like the power build bow. You don't have to worry too much about being weak early on because of the native damage reduction within his kit that is granted to him when he pops his W, plus the bonus stats and the higher magic armor and armor values that he gains early on versus any other character in this game, even Bastion. Bastion, who has greater health regen early on, cannot compare to the bow's defensive capabilities outside of his E, his shield ability. So that's just some food for thought. Visit Strife HQ. Look at a lot of the content that's there. There's a lot of information that you can use to improve yourself, and then just put together a little Excel spreadsheet and fill in some gaps there, and learn the math about the game. Get it down to the science. Learn the math. And that'll help you a lot.
Yeah, and also if you have a couple of friends in Strife or you met some interesting folks on Strife, why not move away from those scrims and check out Strife HQ, register there for the tournament, and try your luck in the tournament. Because the tournament is where you know that you won't run into any toxicity because you're going in with a pre-made team and the opponents are doing the same, so you know that you're going to get a higher level of game. You know that there's people going to be really serious, and it's just going to be a completely different experience as opposed to randoming in games. And they do those tournaments every week, and they're being casted. So hey, you'll even gain some internet fame. Now, to draw this to a close, Gulliver swept me off my feet with Gulliver. Sorry. Ooh, grammatical error. Grammar Nazis go. Gulliver swept me off my feet with his remarks regarding crafting and items. Now, one of the things I'd like to do starting this week is a weekly segment on the show called Tip of the Week, where I will ask a question. People can send in their answers. The panel members will review that, pick the best one, and then implement that as a segment on the show. So they'll discuss it in a little more detail. Now, I had an example ready. Let me just look it up here. I'm sorry, guys. I accidentally closed the window. Come on, you can do it. Whoa, so many emails. Lots of new followers on Twitch. Please bear with me for a while. Right. apparently, for some reason, I can't pull up my old message history, so that's a little bit annoying. So, yeah, just give me a second here, guys.
All right, while he's doing that, hey, your question for Hale, is he viable in the jungle? Sorry I missed that. In this wall of text, I didn't get that one. Super, super viable. Luster is a pet. Max him out as quickly as you can. Start off with the axe that grants you bonus damage on creep or neutral in the jungle, right? Or any creep really, anywhere. Anything that's non-hero. Start off with those two items and get you a good route going, and it becomes viable. You farm, play for high GPM, support the lane that's missing a player due to you jungling, support it here and there on your rotation, and you play Hale pretty much how you play him. Now, when jungling Hale, you're automatically kind of forced into that AD backdoor kind of role that like you said, Tryndamere. Yes, exactly. Exactly like him. You're going to want to backdoor towers. You're going to have a lot of attack speed. You're going to have a lot of damage. You're going to want to hit those towers, drop those objectives, solo Baldir. You're going to want to take objectives around the map, make the enemy team chase you around the map as much as possible, make your presence known. That'll allow for your other lanes to kind of shove and push down when the opposing team is more focused about you. There's a lot of ways you can introduce jungling in the game. I haven't had the ability or the time to devote enough of my time, per se, to jungling. I'm not a jungler, but I have junglers on my team that you can talk to that are very proficient at it. Delusion is incredibly talented when it comes to jungling. If you have questions, you can forward them to him. But yeah, it's definitely viable. It's something you should do.
Okay, I managed to find my message history that I was looking for. Now, to keep it fair, some of these, like I mentioned earlier, some of the questions for the tip of the week will be mentioned for the people, will be directed towards those already in the closed beta so that they can win a beta key for one of their friends. Because, hey, it's always more fun if you take a friend down with you to the battlefield of Strife. And others will apply, other questions will apply more to MOBAs in general, so that people not yet in the closed beta can actually win early access. Now, as an example, I asked a friend of mine who plays a lot of Bastion. This would be how I would phrase it in the show. Imagine that Bastion had just been patched. I would ask, okay, with the recent situation, how Bastion is, do you have any tips on how to effectively play Bastion? And then I got a wall of text with basically, which was, he went a little overboard. It was basically a bastion. It was basically a mini guide. But he gave. Oh, it's hard to search it back on the phone. Yeah, I'm messing this up a bit. But one excerpt from what he wrote was what he wrote was that he found that Bastion fit pretty well with a carry like Vermilion or Rook, and that you can start to do the initiates at level 2 to get an early advantage when you have your stun and your flame. And then he mentioned a little item build, but the overall idea here is to just, supply really helpful tips. For example, the one I got from StrawhatKenny for my Rook play today was, he said, you know what, Vex, don't throw the hook forward, throw the hook behind you, so that you have a escape mechanism at the ready, but you also have the chance to get the bonus from using your ability twice. And that's the kind of tips we're looking for, because then we can, continue on that. We can elaborate further on that. And an example of a question for those not yet in closed beta is, if you are having a bad laning phase, what do you do to turn it around? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like it doesn't necessarily have to be like if I'm Rook, I will make sure that the bow comes in. But just in general, if you're having a bad game, what do you do to turn it around? Now I don't know if any of you from the panel have a question in mind for next week for the show. Otherwise, I have a question, but I'm curious if you have a question that you really feel that you'd really like to see answered by the community. If not, I have one at the ready.
Let's go with yours.
Okay, so this is my question for you guys, and this will apply more to MOBA in general. If you're falling behind in your game and you have a set item build that you imagined for this game, and you're not gonna and you feel that you're not gonna make it because you're starting to get underleveled and you're a little bit at a gold disadvantage, what do you do? Um, what do you do to make sure that you get back to where you need to be? Do you start saving up for that big item, or do you buy little components, or do you seek out something that'll bump your stats just a little, but that's still sellable at a later part of the game? What do you do to make sure that you come back from that disadvantage? Now send those in. You can do that to vexy@gtcgaming.com, or you can send me a message on Reddit, or you can reply when I post Strife Talk episode 2, the edited version, on Reddit. You can reply there as well. It all counts. I'll bundle them. I'll seek you out before episode 3 starts, and I'll let you know if you've won the key. And we'll discuss what you wrote in episode 3. Now, with that I'm closing down the show. I'd like to thank my panel members, Marky X, who dropped in, StrawhatKenny and TekkieSO. Thank you very much for shaking things up a bit and being guests on the show. I really appreciate having you here and taking the time out in your schedule to do this. I'd like to thank everybody who stayed and tuned in. It's really cool to be able to interact with the community of Strife. Hopefully over time we'll crystallize Strife Talk into something really, really awesome. For now, I've been Vexy, twitter.com/IamVexy. Techie, I don't know if you have a site you'd like to plug. Kenny, I don't know about you.
Yes, I will go ahead and type them out here.
No,
I don't think it's appropriate to plug bigboobies.com.
No? Aww.
You guys can follow me on Twitter. That's my Twitter there, x6TekkieSO. Yes, I'm a former member of Check6 Gaming, if you're curious. And my Twitch. And there you go. If you want to get in touch with me, I stream daily. And it is obviously linked to my Twitter, so if you're following, you will be notified.
Well, and you can find me nowhere. You won't be able to track me down, so yeah.
Only on the battlefields of Strife.
Exactly. If you see a bow running at you, it's me.
Yeah, but he's an elitist bastard, so he won't accept your friend request.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know half the people on my list, but I won't accept you.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks everyone. I was a little tired rolling into this, so unlike last week, there was a little less humor. I was a little less witty, and we had a little less of a sharp outro. But when I edit the podcast, I'll make sure I'll edit in a nice intro like I did last time, and I'll edit in a nice outro plugging everybody's address and so on. For now, I've been Vexy. Thank you very much. I had a blast.
Yeah, it's great being here.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for having me. Appreciate all the support.
Yeah.